Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Dustin Kreis, and today we are going to do a game discussion, and we are going to talk about Dragon Quest VIII, Journey of the Cursed King for the Nintendo 3DS, originally on the PlayStation 2, and this is a big one for me, guys. I often talk about how much I love the Dragon Quest series, but Dragon Quest VIII really is just one of those games that is just so easy to label best game of all time. I can't overemphasize enough how important this game was to me back in the day, because being a diehard Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest fan, it was hard. It was hard back in the day because everyone would be talking about, what Final Fantasy was doing and all these other RPGs, Chrono Trigger and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, man, I just really love Dragon Quest. And everyone's like, or I mean, at the time it was Dragon Warrior. And everyone's like, oh yeah, those are really ugly games. And when Dragon Quest VIII came out, it was like, it felt like, they were finally trying to get a wider audience. It was always big in Japan, but it never replicated that success over here. It was just, I don't know, Japan had a real nostalgia tie to it. It came out at the right time in Japan, being a sort of pseudo wizardry clone back when all those types of games were hot. So it really took off in Japan, and they brought it over here, and I mean, it found an audience. It definitely found an audience, but that audience was, kind of small and scattered, and it never really replicated the success of its brethren, Final Fantasy and the other RPGs of the day really kind of surpassed what Dragon Quest was doing. But the series kept chugging along and kept releasing games, and then finally with Dragon Quest VIII, it really felt like Square Enix was it Square Enix at that time? Yeah, it was Square Enix at that time. It finally felt like they were like, all right, we're gonna finally put some money into this series, and it shows. The graphics are amazing. The storyline is, for the Dragon Quest series, the storyline is, right up there with other JRPGs of the era. I mean, it's just all in all a great, great game, and finally, Dragon Quest kind of got its due. So yeah, I mean, I devoured the game when it came out. Most people bought it for the Final Fantasy XII demo, it seemed like. But those people who bought it for the 12 demo eventually got around to playing a really astounding RPG on the PlayStation 2 era. And luckily, it gets a whole new life on the 3DS, and it really is just a fantastic port, guys. The only gripe I really have with it is maybe some color oversaturation, but other than that, it takes Dragon Quest VIII and knocks it out of the park, because it's a long game, and if you're like me, you have a hard time sitting in front of a television for hours on end, playing a game. It's just, I just don't have the ability to do that anymore. I kind of need my games to be a little bit more on the go. So putting Dragon Quest VIII on the 3DS was just a master stroke of, gaming. It's just perfect. I kind of wish maybe it was on the Vita, and it was kind of HD-ified, but, I'm not going to complain about having more Dragon Quest to play ever. And if, being a lifelong Dragon Quest fan, the graphics were never, the main draw. But it is nice. It would be nice to have like a really just amazing top-down graphic overhaul of the game. It would just, I would really go out and buy that right away. But what it is on the 3DS, it is really, really good as well. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into it and talk about this game. This game's a lot different from other Dragon Quest games in that it really puts a lot more emphasis on the storyline and the characters. Much more so than any Dragon Quest game since Dragon Quest V, really. Dragon Quest V was the last big story Dragon Quest. Now, that's not to say that 6 and 7 didn't have a storyline and they weren't good. It's just that, I don't know. 6's story is good, but it's ultimately kind of forgettable. And while 7, I will say 7 has probably one of the darkest storylines going for a while. It really just feels almost too disjointed. In terms of storyline, up until Dragon Quest VIII, it really was Dragon Quest IV and Dragon Quest V that really just knocked the storyline part of the game out of the park. Really just nailed it in terms of what a Dragon Quest story should be. So, Dragon Quest VIII really came in like a breath of fresh air. Had these wonderfully drawn characters, this really awesome setting that actually felt like a real world with real kingdoms that interacted with each other instead of just being, this town is in this area and this castle is in this area. It really felt like a breathing world in a way that Dragon Quest never had before. And, really just draws you in right from the word go. The main character, of course, is a silent protagonist. That's always kind of been Dragon Quest's strength and its weakness at the same time. But, it's a proxy for the player, so I really see why they've kept this up. We'll see if they keep it up for Dragon Quest XI. I haven't looked too much into it because I really want Dragon Quest XI just to blow me away when I get it, so I'm trying to remain spoiler-free. Which, by the way, Last Jedi just came out. It's awesome. I remained spoiler-free for it until I saw it in the movie theater. Had no expectations when I saw it, and absolutely loved it. Everyone's just bitching about, it not, being what they wanted. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Maybe I'll do a Last Jedi video sometime down the road. But anyway, expectations, don't make a whole bunch of expectations for yourself because you'll only be let down. Anyway. So, you have these wonderfully drawn characters from the King and Medea. They've been transformed into a monster and a horse, respectively, by the evil Dul Magus, and your journey setting out with the King as one of his loyal knights to find Dul Magus and make him undo what he has done. And along the way, you meet just a colorful cast of characters, from the wizard in training Jessica to the what's the name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. I want to say monk, but it's not really a monk. He's more like a priest. Angelo. I can't remember what the word is I want to use, and as soon as I stop recording, I'm going to remember what it was. But anyway, Angelo, who obviously has the hots for Jessica, and their banter back and forth is a really nice, push-pull, will-they, type relationship thing. But yeah, along the way you meet a bunch of other colorful characters, some of whom in this version of the game join your party now, so you're not just locked down to the 4 characters of the original game. But it feels like a real world that interacts with each other, and the storyline, in typical Dragon Quest fashion, you go to each town, sort of solve their problems, but they tie together a little bit better than previous Dragon Quest games. And especially when you get to the main villain of the game, which, if you've ever played a Dragon Quest game, the villain you start off going after is never the final villain. Usually it's kind of out of nowhere. It's just like, oh no, now I'm the real big bad. But this game, they really kept a more logistical, reason for there being a second big bad. If that makes any sense at all. I don't know. It just sounds like I just spit out some gibberish. But anyway, the storyline is really good. Keeps you moving town to town, and actually the characters kind of stick with you after the game is over. So I really just can't complain about that storyline in this game. Gameplay wise, tried and true Dragon Quest. In fact, this would be the game I would say, if you're ever looking to get into the Dragon Quest series, this is where you want to start. This is the game you want to start with, because it really refines Dragon Quest, really refines it down and adds a lot of really good new additions. It's a really beautiful game, so you're not looking at old school Nintendo graphics, although the Super Nintendo remakes of the original games are really good looking, and since pixel graphics are trendy again, there you go. The iPhone versions of Dragon Quest 1 through 3 are awesome ports. So if you have a mobile device, it's on Android, it's on iOS, go get those. But anyway, the gameplay, tried and true Dragon Quest, very, I guess, basic RPG gaming. I would say traditional RPG gaming, but some people will say basic because the game really doesn't throw a lot of systems at you. You run around, you fight monsters, you collect experience points, you level up. You also get skill points that you can put towards your proficiency with weapons. This is really awesome, and I would suggest that you kind of look ahead and plan how you want to use these points, because you'll get enough to max out two weapons, basically. And some of the skills are a little bit more useful than others. So, especially with your hero character, and if you want a power level, I would definitely suggest looking into how you want to plan out the points you want to spend. There's also a tension system in the game, which is you can sack a turn to build up tension and continue doing that until you reach super high tension. And I think all the characters can do this now, but I remember in the original game it was just the main character. If they reach like super high tension, they can push it further, and you could try to sack the turn again to get an even higher level of tension, where the main character will go Super Saiyan and really unleash a powerful attack. So that adds a really nice push and pull to a very traditional turn-based RPG. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty tried and true Dragon Quest. If you've played this one, you pretty much know how to play all of them. Really just a wonderful old school experience. Graphically, the game looks gorgeous. The cell shading graphics really, really hold up over the years. So many polygonal games just look nasty by today's standards, but the cell shading really holds up, and this is where I would really want a PS4 Vita port, or maybe even a Switch port that is, really HD-ified, because while the graphics in the 3DS are good looking, it does suffer from that 3DS sort of blurry, not textures, sort of the blurry edges on things, where it's not as sharp as it would be on the Vita. But other than that, graphically, the game looks great. Like I said earlier, or maybe I said it in one of the previous times I tried recording this video, because it's been an experience trying to record this video. But the color saturation on the graphics seems a little bit more oversaturated. And while it doesn't bug me too much, it does kind of look weird to me in some places. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, but I do feel like the colors are a little oversaturated. Voice acting and music in the game are top-notch. I think they added more voice work to this version than it was in the original PS2 version, which is kind of crazy if you think about a DVD going on that small little 3DS cart. But the music has kind of changed a little bit. With the PS2 version over here, we got a really beautiful, like, symphonic score in the game. And while the music still sounds really good in the 3DS version, it's not the symphonic version of the PS2 version. So the music's still great, and it still fits perfectly and keeps you enthralled in the game. But this is not a soundtrack, and this is coming from a Dragon Quest fan. This is not a soundtrack you're going to rush out and buy, like, say, a Nier soundtrack or a Final Fantasy soundtrack. The music is really good, but for me and my taste in video game music, it's just never really been on par with the rest of the RPG series. That being said, I still walk around humming Dragon Quest music all the time, so take that for what it's worth. But anyway, Dragon Quest VIII: Journey of the Cursed King, guys, this is a really great opportunity if you missed out on the PlayStation 2 to really play one of the greatest games of all time, one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, one of the greatest just games of all time. Such a wonderful adventure, such a lengthy adventure, so much to do in this game, especially for its time. And when you start exploring the world and seeing how big it actually is, it's pretty impressive for a PlayStation 2 game. So anyway, guys, I think that about does it for Dragon Quest VIII. I might try to record some more videos here soon. I'm going to try to get these out at a more decent pace, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening. Take care. I'll see you next time.